Hello, dear friend. Have you ever felt like you're constantly seeking approval, or that your voice isn't always heard in a crowded room? Do you wish people would genuinely listen and value your opinions? Today, we're going to dive into a fascinating topic: 8 ways to get people to respect you using reverse psychology. This isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding human nature and subtly influencing interactions to foster genuine respect. We're going to explore powerful yet simple techniques that you can start applying today to transform how others perceive and treat you. By the end of this, you'll feel more confident, more in control, and truly special, knowing you possess the keys to unlock greater respect in all your relationships. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, because you won't want to miss out on these insights that are designed just for you. One of the most powerful applications of reverse psychology to gain respect lies in the strategic use of scarcity and perceived unavailability. It might sound counterintuitive, but constantly being present, always agreeable, and immediately accessible can inadvertently diminish your perceived value. Think about it. If something is always there, always at your beck and call, you often take it for granted. The same principle applies to people. If you're always the first to volunteer, always available for every request, and never seem to have your own demanding schedule, you risk being seen as less important, less busy, and therefore perhaps less valuable. Instead, practice a subtle form of selective availability. This doesn't mean becoming rude or unhelpful. It means being intentional about your time and energy. When someone asks for your help, don't immediately jump to yes. Take a moment. You could say, "Let me check my schedule and get back to you," even if you know you're free. This simple pause communicates that your time is valuable and that you have other commitments. When you do agree, you're not just agreeing, you're making a conscious choice to allocate your valuable time to them, which subtly elevates your position in their eyes. Furthermore, avoid always being the one to initiate contact or social plans. Allow others to reach out to you sometimes. If you're constantly chasing, you're inadvertently sending a message that their time is more valuable than yours. By making yourself slightly less available, you trigger a natural human tendency to value what is scarce. People will unconsciously put more effort into engaging with you because they perceive your attention and time as a commodity that isn't infinitely abundant. This isn't about playing games. It's about creating a healthy dynamic where your presence is appreciated rather than expected, leading to a deeper, more inherent respect. They begin to see you as someone with a life, with priorities, and with a schedule that demands respect, ultimately extending that respect to you as an individual. Another incredibly effective technique involves leveraging the forbidden fruit effect, but in a way that builds respect for your boundaries and decision-making. Often when we want someone to understand our perspective or respect a boundary, we might over-explain, justify, or even plead. This can sometimes have the opposite effect, making you seem insecure or open to negotiation. Reverse psychology suggests a different approach. Subtly imply that what you're doing or saying is a choice you've made, and that any attempt to sway you is futile, not because you're stubborn, but because you've considered the alternatives and settled on your path. For instance, if you're trying to set a boundary about your availability for work emails after hours, instead of saying, "I really can't check emails after 6 p.m. because I need my personal time," you could say, "I've found that my productivity significantly drops the next day if I engage with work emails after 6 p.m., so I've made the decision to stop checking them then." The subtle difference is that the latter frames it as a strategic, well-thought-out decision rather than a personal preference or a plea. It implies that you've already weighed the pros and cons, and your decision is final because it's based on a logical conclusion for optimal performance. This doesn't invite debate, it presents a concluded matter. People are less likely to challenge a decision they perceive as based on objective reasoning and self-optimization. Similarly, if someone is trying to pressure you into something you don't want to do, instead of a direct refusal, you might say, "I appreciate you thinking of me for that, and it sounds like an interesting opportunity, but I've learned that for me to perform at my best, I need to focus my energy on your current priorities." You're not saying no directly, but rather framing your inability to participate as a logical consequence of your commitment to excellence elsewhere. This makes your no sound like a mark of dedication and self-awareness, rather than a lack of willingness or capability. By presenting your boundaries and choices as informed, strategic decisions, you subtly imply that those decisions are not up for discussion, thereby fostering respect for your judgment and autonomy. The power of silence, when wielded deliberately, is a profound tool for earning respect, especially when others expect you to react emotionally or defensively. Most people, when confronted or challenged, instinctively rush to defend themselves, explain their actions, or even counterattack. This often leads to heated arguments, where nobody truly listens and respect diminishes. Reverse psychology suggests that by deliberately holding back your immediate reaction, especially when someone is trying to provoke you, you exert a powerful form of control over the situation and implicitly demand respect. Imagine a scenario where someone makes a critical remark or an unfair accusation. Your natural inclination might be to immediately refute it. Instead, try pausing. Hold eye contact, remain calm, and say nothing for a few seconds. This silence can be incredibly disarming. It denies the other person the immediate reaction they might be seeking, and it shifts the psychological burden onto them. They might even feel compelled to fill the silence, perhaps by elaborating or even backtracking. During this pause, you're not just being quiet. You're signaling that you are in control of your emotions and that you are thoughtfully processing their words rather than reacting impulsively. When you do respond, do so calmly and measuredly. You might say, "I hear what you're saying," or "That's an interesting perspective," without immediately disagreeing. This shows that you are capable of receiving information without being emotionally hijacked. Furthermore, in discussions or negotiations, silence can be a powerful tactic. If someone is pressuring you for a quick decision, a brief silence after their proposal can often lead them to offer concessions or reveal more information, simply to break the tension. This isn't about being manipulative. It's about demonstrating composure, self-awareness, and the ability to think critically under pressure. When people see that you are not easily flustered, that you choose your words carefully, and that you are not swayed by emotional ploys, they are far more likely to respect your mental fortitude and consider your contributions with greater weight. Your silence becomes a statement of strength, not weakness, and it commands a different, deeper kind of respect. Another compelling reverse psychology approach to garnering respect involves subtly implying that you already possess the quality or knowledge that others are trying to impose or explain to you, not in an arrogant way, but as a settled fact. This taps into the human desire to feel helpful and knowledgeable. If you always position yourself as needing guidance or being open to every piece of advice, people might inadvertently assume a superior position, treating you as less experienced or less capable. Instead, when appropriate, frame your understanding or actions as already aligned with good practice or established wisdom. For example, if someone starts to explain a basic concept you already grasp, instead of saying, "I know that already," which can sound dismissive, you could interject with a thoughtful comment that demonstrates your prior knowledge without shutting them down. "Ah, yes, that's precisely why I always prioritize X," knowing it leads to Y outcome. This confirms their point while subtly showing you're already operating at that level of understanding. You're not just acknowledging their wisdom, you're demonstrating you've already integrated it into your own approach. Similarly, if someone tries to advise you on something you've already thoroughly considered, rather than debating, you might say, "I actually spent a good deal of time researching that very aspect, and while I considered that option, I ultimately decided on Z due to A, B, and C factors." This communicates that you're not impulsive or ignorant. You're a person who thinks deeply, researches thoroughly, and makes informed decisions. This approach disarms the impulse to teach you and instead signals that you are a competent, thoughtful individual who has already done their homework. It subtly encourages them to respect your intellectual process and your capacity for independent thought. By demonstrating that you are already operating from a place of considered knowledge and good judgment, you subtly shift the dynamic. People are less likely to assume they need to guide you and more likely to see you as an equal, or even as someone whose informed perspective is valuable, thus naturally fostering respect for your intellect and autonomy. Leveraging the principle of forbidden advice is a sophisticated way to gain respect by subtly implying that your approach or ideas are so effective that others might find them too challenging or even undesirable to adopt themselves. thereby subtly elevating your own perceived capability. People often resist being told what to do directly, but they are incredibly curious about what's presented as exclusive or difficult. Instead of directly advocating for your methods, you can frame them in a way that suggests they might not be for everyone, perhaps requiring a certain level of discipline or a specific mindset. For instance, if you've achieved success using an unconventional strategy, rather than just explaining it and expecting others to follow, you might say, "My approach to this is quite specific, and it requires a level of consistency that most people find difficult to maintain. But it works wonders for me." You're not forbidding them from trying, but you're subtly placing your method behind a small, psychological barrier. This often sparks curiosity and makes your approach seem more valuable and effective because it's framed as something demanding. People are naturally drawn to what appears exclusive or challenging, and they will unconsciously attribute great capability and insight to someone who successfully employs such methods. Similarly, if you have a unique perspective on a problem, instead of presenting it as a definitive solution, you could say, "This might be a bit of a radical idea, and it certainly goes against conventional wisdom, so it's not for everyone, but I've found it to be incredibly effective in certain situations." By prefacing your ideas this way, you're not imposing them. You're presenting them as a distinct, perhaps demanding, but highly potent option. This makes people listen with more attention and respect because they feel they are being let in on something special or potent, rather than simply being given instructions. This reverse psychological framing respects their autonomy while subtly highlighting the distinct value and power of your own unique insights and methods, leading them to respect your unconventional wisdom and efficacy. Embracing the underdog effect in a controlled manner can be a surprising catalyst for respect. Humans have an innate tendency to root for the underdog, to admire resilience, and to value authenticity. Constantly projecting an image of invincibility or flawless perfection can sometimes create distance and even resentment rather than respect. People often find it hard to relate to someone who appears to have no struggles or vulnerabilities. Reverse psychology suggests that by occasionally and strategically revealing a minor, relatable struggle or a past learning experience, you can humanize yourself and evoke a sense of empathy and admiration, leading to genuine respect. This isn't about self-deprecating or airing all your grievances. It's about sharing a contained, resolved challenge that demonstrates your growth and tenacity. For example, instead of only showcasing your successes, you might, at an opportune moment, share a brief anecdote about a past project that initially failed, but from which you learned a crucial lesson that ultimately led to your current success. I remember when I first tried to implement something similar, it was a complete disaster. But that failure taught me XYZ, which is why I now approach it this way. This subtle admission of a past misstep, followed by a clear demonstration of how you overcame it, shows self-awareness, humility, and the capacity for growth. It makes your current achievements seem more earned and your wisdom more profound because it's tempered by experience. People respect individuals who can face adversity and emerge stronger. By allowing others to see a glimpse of your journey, including its minor bumps, you invite a deeper connection and admiration. They no longer see you as just a flawless performer, but as a relatable human being who has earned their stripes, making your accomplishments more inspiring and your character more respectable. This calculated vulnerability fosters a more authentic form of respect, one based on shared humanity and admiration for resilience. Another powerful reverse psychology technique is to strategically undersell your capabilities or achievements, allowing others to discover your true competence. In a world where everyone is often trying to boast and impress, taking a more understated approach can make you stand out and earn more genuine respect. When you constantly highlight your own accomplishments or declare your expertise, it can sometimes trigger skepticism or make people feel inadequate. Instead, let your actions and the results speak for themselves. And when you do speak, use language that is modest and focused on the work or the team, rather than solely on your individual prowess. For instance, if you've completed a complex task with exceptional skill, instead of announcing, "I brilliantly solved that incredibly difficult problem," you might say, "We managed to navigate that challenge quite effectively," or "It was a tricky one, but we found a good way through it." By using "we" or downplaying the difficulty slightly, you allow others to observe your skill and draw their own conclusions about your competence. They will see your modesty alongside your demonstrated ability, which is a powerful combination that commands respect. When people discover your true capabilities through observation, rather than through your self-promotion, their appreciation is often deeper and more genuine. They feel they've uncovered something impressive, rather than being told to be impressed. This also creates a dynamic where people might seek you out for your expertise because they've witnessed it firsthand and respect your understated confidence. By not constantly striving to prove yourself, you subtly imply that your competence is a given, a foundational aspect of who you are that doesn't require constant validation. This quiet confidence, where your actions consistently exceed the modest expectations you set, is incredibly effective at building profound and lasting respect. Finally, an often overlooked but highly effective reverse psychology method for gaining respect is to strategically and genuinely ask for advice or solicit opinions, especially from those whose respect you seek. This might seem counterintuitive, as some believe asking for advice makes you appear less knowledgeable. However, when done correctly, it actually elevates your status and fosters respect. Humans inherently value being seen as knowledgeable and helpful. When you ask someone for their specific advice or opinion on a matter, you are subtly acknowledging their expertise, their wisdom, and their value. You are, in essence, putting them in a position of authority for that moment, which is a flattering experience. This doesn't mean you're delegating your decision-making. It means you're demonstrating intellectual humility and a willingness to consider diverse perspectives, both of which are highly respected traits. For example, if you're facing a challenge, instead of struggling alone or presenting a fully formed solution, you might approach your respected colleague and say, "I've been wrestling with this issue and I have a few ideas, but I'd really value your unique perspective on how you might approach something like X." The key is to make the request specific and to genuinely listen to their response. When you genuinely consider their input, even if you ultimately choose a different path, they will feel heard and respected. This act of seeking input also subtly communicates that you are confident enough in your own abilities not to feel threatened by the insights of others. It shows that you are a thoughtful leader or team member who values collaboration and continuous learning. People respect those who are open-minded, who can admit they don't have all the answers, and who genuinely appreciate the contributions of others. By strategically asking for advice, you not only gain valuable insights, but also cultivate a deeper level of respect from those whose wisdom you seek, as you've made them feel important and valued in the process.